Welcome to the Requel Pitch Podcast. I'm Tyler, your host. On this podcast, we take a property and we kind of pitch it as if I had the IP, what would I do with it? Would I reboot it, make a sequel, midquel? What would I do? What kind of story would I tell to reintroduce that property? One of our last episodes was all about adaptation. It was kind of just a discussion about how far a story goes before it's no longer the story. And I kind of thought on that a little bit, and I've been kind of inundated a little bit with The Wizard of Oz recently because of my daughter. And it's funny because I'm recording this on April 2nd, 2024. And it's crazy how my model of just dropping one of these a week and just, having different ideas, I'm already, dropping this in 2026. So at the time of this recording, um, there's a lot of movies and stuff that's coming out that still plays off things. But this was kind of my idea for The Wizard of Oz. I sat and I thought, the premise of The Wizard of Oz is kind of like, oh, is it a dream? And we're looking more at the movie. I have not read the books, okay? The MGM musical is such a classic and beloved film that that's like the staple that everyone knows of The Wizard of Oz story. I did do a little digging into the books, and some of them were just kind of like bizarre, weird. And I really feel that sometimes less is more. Um, but what if? Okay, and I just restarted rewatching Tin Men with my daughter, the Sci-Fi Channel original miniseries film back when I did those things. And I was thinking about reimagining it, and my thought was, what if Oz is a parallel dimension, and the rainbow is actually an energetic portal that allows you to cross over into this parallel dimension? Now, the issue is when you cross over, your energy draws you to your double on the other side. Your double and you exist like in a code creation. Like when you go to their side, like you're drawn to your double. Go straight to them. And so when Dorothy crosses over, she is drawn to her double. Now the issue is, at the time of her crossing, because of the way it happened, she's in a house. And Dorothy's double is actually the Wicked Witch of the East. So when she crosses over, she accidentally kills her double without knowing it. And because the Wicked Witch of the East looked different, her skin and stuff like that, they don't really recognize that Dorothy looks like the Wicked Witch of the East. This helps explain like the 1-to-1 ratio kind of thing of how you have the Tin Man and Hickory and Zeke and the Lion and the Scarecrow, and for some reason his name is evading me. It's early, but we would have that explains why there's these differences if we want to keep it out of the realm of it being just Dorothy's dream. So we are now in Oz, and I think it would be awesome that Toto, when crosses over, gains the ability to speak. Like many animals have the ability to speak in Oz. So that's kind of my setup for the adventure of what happens in Oz. And I haven't quite fleshed it all out yet as far as the stories. I think it would follow a similar, for reimagining The Wizard of Oz, sticking pretty close to the same beats of the movie, the story. Um, I would do a little bit more about each character, like the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man. A little bit, we'd see their stories a little bit more. I definitely don't know how much I would be like, oh, the Tin Man chopped his arm off. The Tin Man chopped his arm off. Chopped his leg off. Chopped his leg off. It'd probably be in a tin or in an accident, So there'd be a little tweaking here and there. Um, I wouldn't want to go dark with Oz. I feel like that's where everyone's wanted to go recently. Oh, it's dark Oz. I think there's a bright the beauty to it, but I think the idea that there anytime you do like doppelganger parallels, or everyone always assumes that the person on the other side that connected to them is like the same. Like, oh, we're the same. No, it's like it represents a different person. It's not like just because Dorothy is good in Kansas, she's evil in Oz. It's not a one-to-one relation ratio like that. Though it does work for some people, like Dorothy. Miss Gulch is kind of bad in both places. Um, and, Hickory and Zeke and other person whose name I can't think of at the moment, was really making me mad. Um, they are pretty good in both places. But there'll be other characters that we come across that, you know, that are different, so that it creates that dynamic of tension and stakes and uncertainty that we need for our story. It would be pretty much, and I think the wizard, he needs to be, the trick with the wizard, I think, is being the lovable charlatan in a sense. Like, he is a good person, but he's just a man who knows more science and showmanship. And I think if you make the story could be a parallel where if we want to make it like he crossed over, okay, years ago, like years and years ago, like maybe, Dorothy and stuff is set in, all right, Dorothy's set in modern time. She herself. The three people that work on the farm with her, maybe they still work on the farm, or maybe they're just three townsfolk that she's comfortable with. The Tin Man, maybe he's the police officer, the sheriff's deputy that she's friends with, that she knows. Um, Scarecrow could be a school teacher, and the Lion is a farm employee. Okay, they're all people she interacts with. We get a little bit more about Dorothy before she crosses over. These are people that really influence her and are a staple of her um, home life. Now, we got Auntie M, who is her great aunt, and her great uncle, who are older. These are kind of like our Kents here. We got our ma and our pa. And maybe in Tyler's reimagining, Aunt M has just passed away. And Dorothy's really struggling with not having her. All right, so when she crosses over, boom. Now back to the idea with the wizard. He crossed over a long time ago, and he kind of made a big deal when he arrived. Um, but he's tired. He's old. Like, he's made mistakes in Oz. Like, he's put his influence out, and he's only done so much that he could, that he's ready to go home, because when he crossed over, something similar happened, that he killed his doppelganger on accident. Um, and he basically wants Dorothy to take his place as the new Wizard of Oz, because he feels that someone from we'll just say Earth, normal, Kansas, dimension, whatever, should rule over Oz, because the people have not been able to take care of themselves. And this gives Dorothy a little bit of like, no, that's not my place. I just want to go home. Uncle Henry needs me. Since Aunt M has passed, we could lose the farm and everything. And that's a little bit of the differences, but the wizard kind of comes around, in the end. But he's older, and he reminds her of her Uncle Henry, but he's not Uncle Henry. But that's kind of my thoughts on my own version of the Wizard of Oz. Maybe we sprinkle in, I think, maybe some reference to the pumpkin head guy, from Return to Oz, and the other like robot Ten Copper dude, just from the books. I like to sprinkle stuff like that in there, but really cherish that heart of that first film with a little bit of a twist, and just kind of be like the Wizard of Oz with a little bit of difference, but it's still the same story. You can still watch it because the Wizard of Oz, the film, the musical, it should never be remade. It still holds up. There's such a charm to it. All we will ever have is like reimaginations or interpretations. There should never be a remake of the musical, but a a movie version of the Wizard of Oz that is, you know, more like the book, that's not a musical, is fine. And speaking of the musical and it's the story in general, I always have an issue with the fact that the wizard came from Kansas because he says it so nonchalantly. Like, I was a Kansas man myself. And I hate the part where he's like, well, I'm going to go back, and he's got his hot air balloon. I'll take Dorothy back. It feels like the type of scene that we put in movies now as a way of a backdoor setup for a sequel or a prequel when we're wanting to build out a franchise. It's something we kind of put in there, we force it, it sets the stage, sets the seeds of that story. And I feel it's never really done right or fleshed out. It always feels like it takes away from the drama of, he has no ability for Dorothy. I think that looks better on him because since he's just basically telling the Scarecrow, you already had all the brains you needed, here's a diploma that just says that you have brains. Here's a medal that says you have courage because you've always had it inside you. And that's the point, is right, is they all have what they need inside them already. And Dorothy is able to go home with her slippers. So let's just make it a little bit more dramatic that there is no way for her to go home. The wizard can't help her. And then, Glinda, who shows up and says, you've always been able to, which is kind of a cop-out because I felt like Glinda just used Dorothy to go on the hero's journey just to eliminate the witch because Glinda couldn't do it. And now Glinda wants to seize power. But that's a little bit of a darker story. But that's my discussion on The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts. Hit me up in the comments.